to order now. I'm just going through the agenda. The first item on the agenda is the nomination of Councillor and Chair of the Chair. I propose me. Can I have a seconder, please?
Seconded.
Thank you very much. Apologies for absence. I haven't received any apologies for absence. No, thank you. Items of urgent business. I haven't received any items of urgent business. No. Okay, and from the subcommittee, declarations of interest, any?
No. None, Chair.
Thank you. Okay. I'm Councillor Collins and I will chair the subcommittee for this evening. I would like to introduce the members of the subcommittee. Along with me this evening are Councillor Mady to my immediate right, and to my far right is Councillor Fish. Also in attendance are our legal advisors, Simon Scrowther. Our licensing officer is tonight Elizabeth Cox and Paula Parrott, and our clerk is Kenna Healy. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed to the Council's website. Before we start, I would like to explain the process of the hearing. Firstly, the licensing officer will present their report. Following this, members and all relevant parties will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then each party will be given the opportunity to give their case. This is also followed by questions from members and all parties. Once everyone has presented their case, all parties will have time to give a closing summary, with the applicant having the final say. The subcommittee will then retire to consider its decision and will be accompanied by the clerk and the legal advisor. We will then return with our decision. Does anyone have any questions? No? Thank you. So we'll go straight on with item 5, determination of an application for a new premises licence. Before we start, do any of the parties have any requests in particular? Permission for another person to appear, other than specified in advance notice? Permission to cross-examine? Any other requests? No, okay. I would now like to ask the licensing officer to present the factual report, please.
Thank you, Chair. An application has been received for a new premises licence for the Billet Recreation Ground, Billet Lane, Stamford-le-Hope. Representations have been received from 7 local residents and Councillor Hebb acting on behalf of other residents. Today the subcommittee needs to consider this report and appendices together with any oral submissions heard at the hearing and determine the application to grant the premises licence in line with the options open to the committee under the Licensing Act 2003. On the 9th of June 2022, an application for the new premises licence for Billet Recreation Ground was submitted by Lewis Graham on behalf of Red Room Records Limited. Due to insufficient public notices on display at the location, the consultation period was extended to the 22nd of July 2022. The application is to authorise live music, recorded music, performances of dance and supply of alcohol Friday to Sunday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m, but with alcohol sales ceasing at 10:30 p.m. The licence would cover up to 4,999 persons at the event. A copy of the full application and associated documentation and plans is attached as Appendix 1, which is at page 11. During the consultation period, 7 representations were received from local residents and a representation from Councillor Hebb. These are all attached to Appendix 2 at page 37. Essex Police also submitted a representation requesting conditions to be added to the licence if issued, and this is attached to Appendix 3 at page 51. Thurrock Trading Standards and Environmental Protection also submitted requests for conditions to be added to the licence, which I believe have been agreed with the applicant, should this licence be granted. A copy of the requested conditions are attached to Appendices 4 and 5. Should the application be granted, the licence would also be subject to the following conditions taken from the applicant's operating schedule, which forms part of the application form. I won't read the conditions, they're listed at 2.6, which cover a variety of aspects of the event. No representations were received from any other persons or responsible authorities. Under the Licensing Act 2003, the licensing objectives are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. Any representation received must relate to a particular premises and must be relevant to the promotion of one or more of the 4 licensing objectives. Following all tonight's submissions, the following options are available to the Licensing Subcommittee. To grant the licence as applied for, to grant the application subject to such conditions as are necessary and proportionate to promote the licensing objectives, or to refuse the application. In determining the application for the new premises licence, the subcommittee should have regard to the Council's Statement of Licensing Policy and to the guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. Section 2 of the statutory guidance relates to the 4 licensing objectives and may be relevant to this application. The subcommittee are advised that any individual, body or business is entitled to make representations to the licensing authority in relation to an application for the grant of a premises licence. Any representations made by these persons must be relevant, in that the representation relates to one or more of the licensing objectives. It must not be considered to be frivolous or vexatious. The licensing authority, via the subcommittee, has the duty, in accordance with the rule of law, to behave fairly in the decision-making procedure. Representations from all parties, both written and verbal, will form matters that are to be considered. Findings on issues of fact should be on the balance of probability. The subcommittee are advised that the final decision should be based on the individual merits of this application and findings of fact made at this hearing. The application must be determined within 5 working days of the conclusion of the hearing in accordance with the Licensing Act Regulations 2005. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members have any questions of the licensing officer, please? Councillor Manning.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. The applicant's own statement says that they have held events in the location in the past. I'm not sure whether they're talking about the Billet Pub or the Billet Park, because they refer to both of them. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have any knowledge of what's happened there in the past, but I just wondered, have we ever had any complaints about past events or not festivals? I think this is the first, but things like that organised by this organisation.
So this is the first application we've had from the applicants to hold an event within the borough. So it might be a question better addressed to the applicant later on. Thank you.
Councillor Fish, do you have any questions?
Not at this stage, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, we'll press on. Do the Essex Police have any questions of the licensing officer, please?
Essex Police has no questions to ask at this stage.
Does the ward councillor or residents have any questions of the licensing officer, please?
No questions, just a statement.
Does the applicant have any questions of the licensing officer, please?
No, not this time.
Thank you. Well, we're coming to all that, so we'll be discussing that. But thank you. Yeah. I would now like to ask Essex Police to present their report.
Thank you, Chair. So my name is Simon Barnes. I am an Essex Police licensing officer with responsibility for Thurrock. Appendix 3 outlines conditions that have been discussed at length with Red Room Limited. This is obviously a fine balance between attempting to protect the objectives without unduly affecting the business, and has to obviously be considered proportional and towards the risks that any festival would hold within any part of the borough. The conditions are outlined in our Appendix 3, which have been agreed by Red Rooms, my apologies. They are content to accept these conditions onto the licence should the council deem to grant the licence. At this stage, we have nothing further to add on this representation.
Thank you. Before I put the question, open up the questions to anybody else, I'd just like to ask the members of the Essex Police. I'm looking at your statement at the beginning. It says, "I'm writing on behalf of Essex Police. It is our position," this is from the licensing authority, licensing.Thurrock, Essex Police. This would be yourselves, yeah? Writing on behalf of the Essex Police, it's our position that we have concerns to the application in relation to the licensing objective of the prevention of crime and disorder. As a large outdoor event, there is an increased chance of disorder being generated by the combination of alcohol and music in an area outside of normal patrol routes and CCTV. Are you likely to be able to make more police available during the time of the event?
At this stage, I have discussed this with the community policing team. They are looking at, should this event be allowed to occur, to either deploy an additional unit if necessary to the area. But at this stage, they have not been able to confirm that to me, and so that I cannot confirm that to the committee at this time.
So how many officers would be in a unit, please? Is it 2?
If they are able to get a unit out, it would be most likely 2 officers, potentially 3. If depends on resources available at the time, and if they are able to take on extra resource from elsewhere.
Excuse me, sir. It might be useful. I'm Ronan McManus. I'm Senior Licensing Officer for Essex Police. The whole idea of us negotiating is that the event goes ahead with little or no impact on police resourcing to allow us to go about our normal business. Obviously, our community policing team will be aware of this event, and they may be paying attention to it, whether that be tasking officers directly there or in a casual position. It has appeared on our force tasking, so that roads policing will be aware of it, but not necessarily tasked to it, because I can't say at this moment in time what other resources or other issues are going to be arising within Essex Police at the time of this. So we try to sort of incorporate conditions to reduce the likelihood of crime and disorder in agreement with the applicants.
Thank you, Mr. McManus. Councillor Mayne, would you have any questions?
No, thank you, Chair.
Councillor Fish? Does the licensing officer have any questions of Essex Police?
No, thank you, Chair.
Ward Council or residents have any questions of the Essex Police?
Yes, please, Chair. Purely one of ignorance, if anything. If resources allocated from the police, who pays for that out of interest? I don't know how it works.
This will be part of normal policing. So what you'll find is that some larger events, such as the old V Festival, Creamfields and such like, if officers are required within the footprint of the event, then the event organisers would pay for that. But there is no specifics officers being tasked within the footprint at this time, and this would just form part of a normal policing day for Essex Police.
Any more questions?
Thank you.
Councillor?
I think you probably already answered it, but
So, okay, will there be any sort of undercover police presence or dog units there?
By the very nature of it, I can't confirm or I can't deny whether an undercover operation will take place. What I'd say, any operations are intelligence-led. If the intelligence suggests that we need to deploy undercover officers, then we shall do. But I'm not in a position to confirm or deny that's going to take place. I'm sorry, that's quite of a sitting on the fence answer, ma'am.
Anyone else?
Insofar as police are concerned, if there is an incident outside the footprint, then how quickly are the police going to react to it? We've had problems in the past in regards to issues outside of the actual building area.
Yes, thank you, sir. That would form part of the normal response to Essex Police calls from the public. So we have got the immediate call response if it's life-threatening, which is a 999 response, which is 15 minutes, and then there is a soonest. But that whole process of when you ring up, that's assessed and graded at the force control room, and if necessary, we will send officers from other parts of the county, depending on what the call is. So I can't really sit here and say you will have an officer there within 10 minutes. The call will go in, it will be assessed, graded, and officers will attend if it's appropriate, sir.
Any more questions from the residents? No? Okay. Does the applicant have any questions of the Essex Police, please?
No, not at this time.
I would now like to ask the ward member to present their case, please.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. I mean, look, firstly, that a cultural event in itself is not a bad thing. I mean, personally, I'm a bit long in the tooth for all that now, but I do appreciate that there are people that do enjoy such events in a good, well-meaning spirit, and I'm sure if they did realise that they were causing problems, they would be aghast. But the main issue here is that it is in an area, the issue here is the area in which the event is being proposed. Even with well-meaning intentions, I mean, colleagues from Essex Police talked about some of the mitigation measures that were being sort of put forward. The disruption that is sure to feature for those days, for an excessive amount of hours, to a significant number of households in the area which are literally directly opposite this location, if this licence to go ahead is obviously quite clear to see. Now, I've been approached by a number of residents, some who are here tonight and some who can't be here tonight. And a number of them, along with my own concerns, have articulated their anxieties about such an event, and I'll seek to sort of articulate a number of them outside of what I've already done. There are a large amount of concerns that such a large event for such a large period of time will have a significantly detrimental impact to residents and families living just on the other side of the road to the proposed event site, but not only those just opposite, the whole community area just behind those as well. There are shift workers that have written to me, concerns that, just because a lot of people's world stop Monday to Friday 9 till 5 and it's all fun after 5 p.m. on a Friday, there's a lot of people that don't, whether it be emergency services, manufacturing, there's a number of shift workers that, or the point around shift workers come up a number of times. Younger children. I think sure most of us can empathise with the fact that there are young children and others needing rest. This isn't a 6-week holiday anymore. They will be required to go, to school, and parents need to obviously be able to take them to school, so that they'll be impacted as well. And of course, while it is September, it's still quite hot at that period of time. So there are residents that wouldn't want to have to shut every door and window to try and evade such disturbances. I think the issue here is that it's such a large-scale public event. It would be noisy, loud, and go on for many hours, literally on the doorsteps of residents who already have to put up with a lot in that area. One resident asked me to share information about another event, albeit this is in London, in Finsbury Park, where a number of issues were reported. The Friends of Finsbury Park says major events restrict access for residents, damage the park, that residents are left behind, and lead to noise and antisocial behaviour. My understanding is that the organisers of that festival did advertise their event, did highlight the controls that they sought to mitigate any impacts, but there were reports emerging of the police struggling to control crowds, and with festival goers going over fences reportedly as the event unfolded. And I'm not suggesting that's going to be the case here, but let's be honest, the community policing team are not in surplus. They are quite stretched. And it's hard enough getting people to come and deal with the biker issue. And that's not a criticism, by the way. It's just a reality. They're busy. We have a number of biker issues around Stamford Hope West, this field again, and the thought that they'd be deterred from that to deal with an event such as this is a little bit galling. We've seen in the wider Essex area, so Upminster, Chelmsford, Southend, a rise of musical festivals and some of the problems that they cause with local residents. But not only from the noise stuff, but also traffic restrictions. There has been some unruly behaviour as well, antisocial behaviour, noise pollution, and so forth. We've already talked about the cost of the emergency services, and I've already conveyed my concerns with that. One concern is where on earth 2,500 people go into park. The Billet car park does have a car park, but it's not sufficient for such a volume of vehicles. The answer is that cars will be parking all around Billet Lane, Adams Road, Conrad Road, Burgess Avenue, at the very least, I should fashion. Another resident wrote to me informing me that her husband suffers with a condition that affects his hearing and means that he can't tolerate loud noises. It's a medical condition that he's got. What is he meant to do for those days, those hours? It's going to literally, directly, tangibly impact his own physical well-being. The advert that went out after licensing asked for further public engagement makes reference to the fact that there will be noise nuisance. So that's a recognised matter. For those who aren't overly familiar with the geography of Billet Lane, there is a shelter residence complex called Kinnock Court there, which houses, I think, it's about 45 properties. In that, of which a number of residents are elderly or perhaps more infirm. Again, that's a significant burden to put on them over such a period of time. I had a resident from Corringham Road, which is, again, for those who don't know the geography, it's a bit of a distance away. And the reports that events that have happened before, the base has been so high that her house shook and that she couldn't go out into her garden between 11 and 10. And reportedly it was also felt in the sorrels, which, again, if you don't know your geography, is considerably further away. One asked if Red Room will be responsible for taking care of the litter caused by the event. I don't know the answer to that, so I thought I'd raise that here. And the thing here is that this isn't a Stamford La Hope community event. Okay, we have had events in the area before that are orientated and marketed with a proposition to local people for a local, event that they can enjoy. And because it's their local area, they'll take pride in it and make sure that they clean up after themselves and everything else. This is not. This is not for local people in isolation. It's been advertised far and wide to people who would be arriving by car, train more than likely, and it's clearly more than just listening to some music. We've called in the application to the committee as we feel these points need to be made clear. To argue that this event does go too far, and it would be better placed somewhere more remote, somewhere which doesn't require thousands of people to travel through a residential area in the roads that I spoke about, and somewhere where loud music and alcohol wouldn't impact an entire community for such a long period of time. The event could work well, but not here. There are plenty of rural settings where fields are located far away from residential developments, some of which only circa 5-10 minutes away. I'd recommend the committee visit the location if they're unsure about the layout of the area and how people would access the event and how close the event would be to so many households and families. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hibb. Would any resident like to speak further on what the ward member has already told us, please? Just a moment, please. Okay, sir. If you just switch on the microphone and say.
Right, okay, Chair, thank you very much. Yeah, some past issues that we've had in regards to, as Fred was saying there, in regards to problems we've had with noise. Now, I live on Burgess Avenue, and the last event that we had, I was recording 88 to 90 dBA in the back garden. Now, we all know that 85 dBA is loud enough. We set occupational standard levels at that, and it's known that higher levels than that can cause occupational deafness. It can cause temporary and permanent threshold shift. Now, in the past, we've not had any real assistance on this. What worries me is that we've received this in advance before the licence has actually been accepted, it's been issued. So that tells me that there's almost a feeling of fait accompli. The times on here, yes, they fall within the actual, more or less within the zones that we've already been advertised.
Just a moment, please. I haven't seen this. Could that be passed?
Right, this was a mail shot. I can bring it round to you. It was a mail shot that was passed through our letterboxes early one morning. Also from the past experience in regards to the statutory notification of the application for the licence, we've had two issues there. The first issue, one, that it wasn't displayed correctly in the first place, and being suspicious, that was to evade people seeing it. And the second time, when it was put in a public area, there was a van parked directly opposite it, so no one could see it. So, from that point of view, we've lost trust in these people doing what they say they're going to do. Granting a licence is just going to cause mental health issues within the community. We've seen it in the past. We've had to put up with the noise. We've had to put up with the patrons leaving the area, the shouting, the screaming, the fighting that breaks out, screeching of cars, slamming of doors. There's no respect whatsoever for the people within this community. This is a residential area, and that's what it is. Find a field somewhere, The Allsett showground, that's a perfect area for this to be held, and that's not going to affect anyone. And of course, the road links are perfect, the parking's perfect. So why put this on the residents of Stanford?
Thank you. Okay, if we just remain there for a little while, sir. Do members have any questions of the ward member, please?
Chair. Sorry, Chair.
Pardon. I beg your pardon. Another red, I understand you wish to speak as well. Would you come and swap seats, please? Okay.
Some of the points I want to raise have already been raised by Councillor Hebb and a fellow resident. Historically, there's been multiple complaints that have gone into the council about noise. We had a group meeting just only 2 or 3 weeks ago with regard to noise. It's completely untenable, and I fully endorse what my fellow resident has said, that this is not the right venue for such an event. It should be somewhere like the Allsett Showground. Far too close a proximity, within a space of 20, 30 feet from houses. My other concern is probably, perhaps the police may have some comment to make on this, is parking has already been highlighted. What contingency would there be for a major incident which could potentially happen? How would fire engines, police, ambulance, medics get through? The answer is they wouldn't, because the cars would be blocking the road. It's not tenable at all. And also, going on from that, with regard to security, unless this whole area, should this event go ahead, be secured by fencing, how would access be restricted from other non-ticket holders? With regard to security staff that may be employed, what calibre are they? Are they just premium? Are they premium staff, or are they just SIA staff? And does the security company have an accredited certification scheme status? Will there be screening taking place of people that are coming in for prohibited items? Will there be an amnesty bin for such items? My other point I already raised about the undercover police and dog units, and also something else that's already been raised is about CCTV. I'm sure that there isn't any CCTV, so how will what medical assistance will be on site? Will there be a search of the ground before and after the event? How will the noise level be monitored, and how will we ensure that the area is cleared of rubbish, glass, gas canisters, drug paraphernalia, as we all have to contend with currently? My other points have all been in my letter that went into the licensing, but noise, litter, etc. is our highest priority, and security. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to say something? No other residents? No. Okay, thank you. Now, do members have any questions of the ward member, please? No? No. Thank you, Councillor Head. Does Essex Police have any questions of the ward member, please? Does the applicant have any questions of the ward member? Perhaps answer some of the concerns.
No questions at this time. I've got a lot of the stuff that you've mentioned and brought up. It's covered in my final report, which I'll talk about at the end, and some of the noise stuff, that's what Dave's here for, to cover from our noise contractor.
I would now like the applicant to present their case, please. Perhaps you could bring the microphone a little closer, because I can't hear very well. Thank you.
Hello, so I'm Lewis Gray. I'm the Music and Events Director here at Red Wing Records. Red Room Records have applied for a premises licence under the Licensing Act 2003 for the premises called the Cricket Billet Lane Recreation Grounds, also known as Billet Park, for an event to be held on the 10th of September 2022. Although the Billet Pub and Billet Park have been operating for a number of years, and Red Room have done previous events here in the past, this is the first festival-style event that we are planning to hold here. Red Room are looking at holding a one-day music festival on a yearly basis. If a second event is sought within a year, the council's permission will obviously be asked for prior to that event if we wanted to do more than one. Obviously, the licence that we've applied for is Friday to Sunday, 11 to 11. However, that is not the scope of what we are looking to do here. Just want to make that clear. It is one day music event per year. Our clients have been made up from a mixture of 20 to 50 plus. This is mainly because of the genre of music and what we play. It's house music, disco house, classic music, all that kind of revisions. Although we've applied for the licence for 4999, the reality is that when applying for a licence, the first bracket is 499 and the second bracket is 4999. We are not expecting 4,999 people to come to this event on the 10th of September. We're expecting probably the top end 2,500 at a maximum, including staff, security, paramedics, etc. Our management team is made up of experienced staff in the independent companies that we've employed, which will be running security, site management, traffic, medical, which will follow the Purple Guide for events, noise production and bars. There's a chain of command in all of the companies, including the food vendors that we have on site, skip companies, rubbish, litter pickers, door staff, box office staff, token staff, bar staff, the lot. All have insurances in place and the relevant checks have been made on these people. This is all part of what we had to do for our event management plan and everything we have to put together for the event. We've looked at the representations submitted and we truly empathise with all the residents and totally understand why they'd be very wary of yet another event in this area. However, a lot of the representations submitted are regarding activities that have taken place or have took place at the Billet Pub and not the premises that we are applying for, which is Billet Lane Recreational Grounds, which is the Billet Park. And therefore, it's not fair to penalise this application entirely for what it seems to us that the representations are for the Billet Pub. And this application should be looked at in its own merit. To reassure everyone concerned, the residents and the council members here, we have outlined here how we aim to minimise the control of noise from the festival and avoid any antisocial behaviour, plus how we aim to control littering. This way we hope to alleviate most of all the concerns that have been raised here today, whilst we are promoting the 4 licensing objectives, which are, as you know, the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. We understand that the residents may still be cautious. However, having put everything that they have in writing, we hope residents understand that we could be held liable if anything does happen, and therefore it is in our interest, in Red Room's interest, and the whole of our company, to ensure that we follow through with everything we said that we will do, also taking into account that we are looking at hosting this on a yearly basis. So we don't want to cause any bad blood or have any bad relationships with the members of the public or the council. With regards to the noise, it may be understood that noise cannot be avoided at a festival. It is a fact. Noise is noise. However, festivals can be a good thing for the community, providing the noise can be controlled. The main culprit of the noise is the bass noise. This noise on a noise reader is measured in what is known as dBc. To understand what this means, it must be explained there are 3 types of frequencies: highs, mids and bass. The highs tend to be directional, meaning the noise will travel straight in the direction of the speaker. However, bass noise travels in an omnidirectional state, meaning the noise of the bass is 360 degrees. This means, however, in most directions it can only be heard. In most directions, only what can be heard is the thud of the bass, which is what, in a lot of your representations you were saying, is what you can hear. Our intention is to have speakers facing the opposite direction away from the houses, and as mentioned, we are aware that this will mean houses to the rear would be subjected to only the bass noise, and therefore we're using what is known as directional space speakers from White Sound and Light and Hire, which is our chosen contractor for our production management for the event. This means the noise in these speakers, and they're built in such a way that the bass will travel in the direction the speaker is faced. And this does dramatically reduce the noise from the bass going to the rear. However, it is impossible for all the noise to be stopped. Therefore, to reduce the noise even further, we'll be enclosing the speakers within cube-shaped metal Harris fencing, which will have an opening to the front, which is where the stage area will be. These Harris fencing will be covered with special Harris acoustic barriers. These are what are used in city centre construction sites to minimise noise being outputted from building sites across the city. And they're a great way of reducing noise pollution, creating a much quieter environment, and they can absorb up to 30 decibels. To my knowledge, this has never been done at this venue or in this area at all before. We understand that even all this may not be sufficient, and therefore we've also employed a noise monitoring technician who will be tasked with controlling the noise throughout the event and measuring the noise on an hourly basis at the noise sensitive properties as agreed to the levels that we've agreed with the council previously. A management plan has been submitted to the Council Safety Advisory Group detailing all the steps we have taken to control antisocial behaviour. To briefly cover this, we are aware that residents and councillors are not privy to this information. So there will be security on site positioned at the entrance throughout the venue throughout the whole entire day. The security at the entrance will ensure that no weapons, drugs, alcohol is taken into the venue, and also alcohol is not taken out of the venue as part of the conditions that Essex Police have asked us to follow. Details of taxi firms will be listed on the exits, with taxi firms being notified well in advance of the event taking place. There's also signs asking people to respect the neighbours when leaving. There will be a robust age verification policy in place, and there will be no irresponsible alcohol price promotions which encourages binge drinking. Paramedics will be on site throughout the event in the event that medical assistance is needed to one of the customers on site. Consideration has even been made towards mass exodus at the end of the event, where the stages will close on a staggered basis to avoid everyone leaving at the same time. In addition, alcohol will stop being served half an hour before the last stage is due to finish. As the stage closes, the security personnel covering that specific area will then be redeployed to move over to the main roads and the surrounding areas outside the venue along Billet Lane and hold that state, to ensure that the attendees leave in a responsible manner. There will be litter collectors and bins throughout the venue, and furthermore the litter crew will be remaining for a further 2 hours after the event to clear up the surrounding areas along Billet Lane all the way down to the train station. The organisers will finalise the clean-up the following morning once we're there to do the site pat-down, and will be ensuring that all the rubbish on the main roads and surrounding areas is clear of all festival litter. In addition to the police conditions and their representation, the DPS will be conducting a meeting every 2 hours with the heads of security, myself, the organiser, the paramedic team, production manager, to ensure that everything runs perfectly throughout the day. A log of meetings will be kept and passed on to the organisers, myself, at the end of the event. The DPS for the event is in charge of the bars and will ensure that the refusals book is at hand at all times. The DPS will also brief the staff at the outset to ensure that staff are aware of what is expected of them. The security company will also have an incident logbook on the gate and in the main site office to provide the organisers with a list of all the SIA staff on site that day with their valid SIA ID badge. Both books and all records will be passed on to myself at the end of the event and kept for a period of 12 months. At Red Room, we've already submitted a comprehensive events management plan to the council, and although this is unavailable to the public, most of what has been mentioned here is already enlisted within the plans. It is not our intention to aggrieve the residents, and this application must be looked upon as us against them. This is a small village where one of the organisers himself on my team lives in, and hopes the residents will welcome our festival yearly. As a show of good faith, we're not a huge company. We're not in a position to offer everyone free tickets. However, people within the surrounding area, we are planning to if they contact us via our website's form, and we have had people along Billet Lane do that already, and we are in the process of issuing them to the residents along that side. We'd also like the opportunity to offer anyone with disabilities who lives local free tickets for them and their carers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, before I put it up to questions to the members, I'd just like to ask yourself and the rest of your team some questions. First of all, there was concerns about parking. That should be covered under the traffic management plan of your event management plan. What are the plans? What parking are you arranged?
So the event has been publicised across all of our social media platforms, our website, that is a non-parking event. So we have advised all of our clientele to come by public transport, either the trains or bus services locally. We expect a lot of the people that are coming will be living in the Stamford, Corrium, East Tilbury area, so all local. That's the majority of our clientele is from there. We do have a small car park on site. However, this is we're not planning to use it because we don't want people to bring cars to the event. Billet Lane has also been put in for an application, so it's closed on the day. This is with Highways at the moment, and I'm waiting to hear back from them. They did contact me last week saying they were going to get back to me this week.
Okay. This particular flyer, have you seen it? Could I have it, please? Thank you.
Yeah, so that's when we first went to...
Who put that out?
That was our team that put that out to the residents. That was to give the residents in the local area on-site contact on the day for any noise-related queries or to contact us in the event that they need to speak to us as an organiser. This was what we agreed with SAG within our first SAG meeting.
Okay, and you said you'll have security on the gate and you'll have security, was it roving patrols or something like that?
So yes, we have security on the main entrance within each arena, and we have a response team on site. The security teams will be redeployed to the outside of the site along Billet Lane as the stage is closed at the end of the event, so we can push or pass the customers on and out of the area as quickly as possible to alleviate problems within Billet Lane and the surrounding areas, just to get them away from the site and onto wherever they're going to go after the event.
So how many people do you envisage to be on the gate, and how many people do you envisage to be as part of the security team, please?
So we have got, on the current plan, so we're having 30 door staff across the day for the people, so for the 2,500, that's the maximum amount we're going to cap the event at. So, and we've got 2 response teams of 4, 8 door staff on the gate, and the rest of them are plotted around for the bars, the arenas. And obviously, as the event comes to a close, them teams will be redeployed to Billet Lane, along with the stewarding teams, all the way down to the train station.
How do you propose to stop people coming in? It's open on all sides. There's no fencing.
The whole site is fenced.
I've been there today. There's no fencing.
Yes, no, there's no. We're putting up temporary fencing across the whole site.
What sort of fences are you putting up?
So we have got across the main site steel shield fencing, which is this what? Sorry.
How tall?
Across the main front, it's 3.5 metres tall, and along the back rear perimeter of the site, it is 2-tiered Harris fencing with a patrol perimeter with a dog team in there.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen this? Has anyone seen this on the event management plan? In the event management plan?
Yeah, so the security plan is in the event management plan. The updated site map, which we are just finalising this week, will be sent on Monday.
It's 3.5 metres high.
Yeah, 3.4 metres. Steel shield fencing.
And how is it fixed?
It is grass fitted, so it's like a. I don't know if you've seen it. The same as what they have at We Are Festival, and other similar festivals to that type. It's like 3.5 metres high, and it's got metal poles on the back to support it from falling over. And it's fitted to the grass.
I see. Thank you. Thank you. Any members have any questions? Councillor Maney first, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your presentation. It's informative. Can I just check? You said that you're expecting about 1,500 to 2,000 people to attend. What have you based that figure on?
Based on our previous events. So, I mean, most of the number of people we've ever had at an event is around 800. That was at Unit 7 in Basildon. We've got other brands that are working with us on this event. So there's 3 stages. Each stage is hosted by a different brand. So it's a culmination of our highest capacities that we've had combined, which meets that number.
Okay, did I hear correct? Did I hear you say that you will cap it at around that figure?
Yeah.
So
we're capping the total capacity is 2,500.
So what would happen then? I mean, you're advertising quite far and wide, and you're using a lot of social media, so it's reaching a lot of people.
Yep.
If significantly more than that turn up and they refuse entry, is there not the potential for large gatherings who have travelled from a distance, refused entry, and therefore basically left loitering in residential areas? How will you manage that? You've got no way of guaranteeing that there won't be more than that. If they refuse entry, they're effectively going to be, potentially quite angry confrontations, and these people are simply have nowhere to go. How would you manage that?
So the way we're managing that is it is an online-only ticketed event. There is no tickets on the door. There's no box office. As people arrive, they get their ticket scanned. If they haven't got a ticket, it's no ticket, no entry, as well as their ID as well.
Councillor Fish, any questions?
In terms of the speaker arrangement, having the trying to limit the bass sound, have you used that arrangement at other festivals or other events that you've done?
What with the Harris Spencer with the? Yeah. So no, not me personally, but our DPS, who was DPS at a site called Springfield Farm, has been for the last 4 years. It's run multiple festivals using this system, and since they started using it, they've not had one complaint from the council, from St Albans District Council.
And then further related to that, you said that the sound will be monitored, particularly at the houses most affected. What will happen if it's monitored and you find that the sound has gone above the level that was agreed?
So Dave, I'll bring you in on this one. So I'll let you talk, but it's to do with the EQing of the speakers and how the bass is controlled.
So what we're looking to do is have a designated sound engineer on each stage who's able to bring the sound levels down. We've also got limiters on our sound desk, so we can limit the sound at a certain level, so it can't go above that level. We've arranged the site in a way that we're facing all the sound away from houses. I think it's like south or southwest we've arranged the stage to be facing, so we're not facing any residential areas whatsoever. And with the perimeter fencing around, it should also deaden some of the sound which would travel behind.
And then my other question, I saw the sort of little flyer that you put out, and it gives a contact for the day, but it's an email address. So is there somebody going to be answering those emails immediately they've received?
There's a phone number on there as well, and email address. So both are monitored throughout the day from the site office.
Just one question. How long will it take to put up these fences and take them down again, please?
So we have the site from Friday to Sunday. Obviously, the steel shield fencing going across, it's about 220 metres to put up. It can be done within a few hours. It doesn't take a long amount of time to put up at all. It's literally you put them up, bolt them together, and dig it into the ground.
And how are the parts delivered there? On the back of an articulated lorry, or?
Yeah, so it will be on a lorry.
Thank you. Does the licensing officer have any questions of the applicant?
No, thank you, Chair.
Does Essex Police have any questions of the applicant, please? No.
No, sir.
Thank you. Does the ward councillor or residents have any questions of the applicant, please?
Is that right? Yeah. Thank you for going through all that. I can't keep coming back to one thing. Why here? I've not heard anything tonight which explains why you would want to put 2,500 people on a field opposite circa 250 homes, a sheltered housing complex, and everything else. I don't get it. Presumably there's a business case behind that. You know, I'm not saying that as as one professional to another. I get what your model might be, but I don't get why here. When literally 5-10 minutes up the road, you've already advertised it as a non-parking event. When you've got places 5 to 10 minutes away which have parking, why this area is where you want to do this? I don't get it.
So the simple answer to that is that's really our home. That's where we're from. That's where a lot of our clientele are from. We've done events at the Billet before, and that's where people come for our events. The Billet Field as well has a precedence. It's had music festivals on there before, which I believe your fellow ward councillor Terry Pillico was involved in as well. Again, you know, there wasn't any problems at them events. I don't see why there would be any problems at ours with the controls we've got in place. And that's the simple answer to that, is that that's where we're from, that's where we want to do it, because that's where we do a lot of our events, and there's been a precedence on that particular site before that has had music festivals on it.
Councillor.
Thank you. I mean, what's happened before is Stamford La Hope community festivals, which have, you know, been part of Stamford La Hope Festival weekend. We used to have a high street shut, you know, and like all stalls and, you know, blah, 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 and a music stage down King Street and stuff like that. It was a thematic weekend in Stamford La Hope for Stamford La Hope people. Well, obviously people probably did come from outside, but this has obviously been advertised far and wider than that, as we've already acknowledged. I suppose the other point I'd ask is if the licensing subcommittee do, I suppose the word is reject the licence application, you're clearly very passionate about what you do. You know, that's credit to you. Would you look at going somewhere else? Would you look at going somewhere else at this later date?
Probably not at this stage. I mean, this is where we've set everything up to be. This is where we set everything up, you know, to have our event, and we wouldn't be looking at changing it. And also, you know, it is a community event to a certain extent. It may not be for everyone of all ages, but definitely those between, you know, the 18 to 40s bracket, 18 to 50s bracket. It is a community-based event, and we're all from around here. A lot of the DJs we've got on the lineup are all from around here and local areas, including Stamford, Corrigan, Grays, Wickford, Southend. And that would be my answer to that.
You mentioned Councillor Piccolo. Councillor Piccolo would like to say a few words. If you'd like to sit up there, please, Councillor Piccolo. Sorry? Sorry. Councillor Piccolo, you haven't registered to speak. Sorry. Would any residents like to come up and say something? Please come up.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. There's a lot of ifs and buts here. If this works, if that works, etc., etc. I'm a businessman, and your business plan does not appear to stack up. Now, direct question: is it a sellout yet? And if so, how many tickets have you actually sold?
It's not sold out at this point, no.
Right. So, how many tickets have you sold?
That's our information. We don't want to give that out to the public.
Sorry, say that again.
We're not giving that information out publicly of what we've sold.
Right, because there's word going around it's a sellout. So you're saying it's definitely not.
Please. This isn't relevant to the actual licensing, I'm afraid.
This is relevant because I'll tell you why if you let me go on.
You can make the point, but the applicant may not have to answer it. It must be quite relevant to what he said and the licensing objectives. The number of tickets is a matter for the applicant, as long as it doesn't exceed the specified number of 2,500.
Okay. It's relevant as long as the application or tickets sold don't exceed 2,500.
Absolutely, and so what I'm saying is how many have been sold now, because we're saying ifs and buts. If we sell this number, if we sell that, and we're going to cap it at this. And this is the question I'm asking, is how many likely to attend? And I think you know that straight away. Second question I've got, what we haven't addressed is the issue with all the vehicles, other vehicles, lorries, etc., that are going to need to deliver all your kit to the billet. So how are you managing that?
So the deliveries of goods and the site equipment infrastructure is done on Friday. The majority of the vehicles bringing the stuff in won't be there on Saturday. They would have been gone, and they will return on Sunday to collect the items. Anything that is staying will be within the perimeter fence and on site.
Right, but how are you managing those lorries? What type of lorries are we going to be looking at? Juggernauts? Are we looking at articulated lorries?
Well, we're looking at low loaders that are bringing in things like toilets. We'll have obviously from a production point of view, we'll have things like cranes bringing stuff up, or what I've done, is that name for them?
So all of our equipment will be brought in on a probably 3.5-ton lorry, and that will be delivered on site on the Friday, and that goes off site until the Sunday for collection.
Right, so there's going to be a lot of lorry movements, yeah? Yeah, so again, that's going to be considered in a residential area. Children could be playing in that residential area. How are you going to manage that?
So our drop-offs are going to be in the billet car park itself, and that's where the access of the site will be. So it will go through the gates of the billet car park, and then it will be on the car park site, not on the main roads or in residential areas.
No, that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making, they're going to be using the roads. They're going to be using residential roads.
Everybody uses the road. I used the road to get down there when I went to do a site visit. So did, I'm sure, yourself, Chairman. Everyone uses the road to get to the site, but there's not going to be any obstructions on the actual road, if that helps to alleviate any of your concerns.
No, what I'm talking about is the increase of the heavy traffic that's going to be on the road while you're setting up.
There'll be two.
That estate is not used to that type of traffic. So how are you going to manage that?
I mean, there's going to be 2 to 4 lorries going up there during the day. The billet have a lorry that comes to deliver their beer and their stock, so that road is used to that type of road movements.
Okay, you talked about your liability, and you said your liability. You're liable for what happens or doesn't happen. So your liability, once the people actually leave that venue, your liability is then gone, presumably. So what happens when we start getting damage to vehicles? What happens when we've got people shouting and screaming walking down streets? What happens when we see litter around the streets? What happens when people are peeing up the fences and goodness knows what else? This has happened in the past. So how are you going to control that?
So, as addressed in my closing statement, we are redeploying resources from the event, which will go out the car park, down Billet Lane, to the train station to usher the crowd away. There will be no people waiting along Billet Lane. There'll be ushers along. They're not going to be sitting there shouting around, urinating on driveways or anything like that. And the things you spoke about, I am unaware of any of this happening at any of our events that we've had here. Maybe other events that have been at the Billet pub, but not necessarily ours.
Yeah, it's just the wrong place to have it. Simple as that. You've got plenty of opportunity to do it elsewhere. And you're not going to upset anyone. You're going to have all your movements. You've got your good traffic routes. We've got Rendezvous Road, which runs from the chemical works and from the port. We're now going to have a lot of pollution.
Your microphone off, please, both of you.
What was it?
Okay. It isn't actually relevant. We've got to make particular arguments. We understand the depth of your feeling, but they've got to be relevant to the application and how you answer the application. All right?
How is that not relevant?
We can understand. We understand. Could you just make a little briefer? We understand exactly your concerns. A lot of people have these concerns.
Well, tell me how that's not relevant when you've got traffic blocking the roads on a rendezvous. So tell me how that's not relevant then. Where you've got a rendezvous route, you've got vehicles blocking those routes, 2,500 potentially more vehicles on the road. We've got the pollution, we've got everything else that goes with that. How are you going to manage that?
Yeah, I think I've answered that question. You can ask that.
Councillor Head, would you like to say something?
It's just a quick thing on the post closure of the marshalling, all the white people, or coercing people down to the station in single file, well behaved fashion. What authority on a public street do volunteers or employees have to deal with unruly and antisocial behaviour? I get the spirit of what you're saying, but I can't see actually what use that would be. Because they haven't got unless they're going to start citizen arresting people if they start doing some of the antisocial behaviour, arguably it's a bit of an ineffective gesture.
I see what you're saying, yes, but in effect we are doing over and above what we need to do. You know, our premises is what we have to secure and protect, and by deploying teams to that street and deploying stewards to the street is us going over and above what we need to be doing. It's at least trying to help move people along to the train station. If you think it's going to be ineffective, you know, that's your opinion, but that's the most of what we can do to help the situation. And I hear this being all brought to light now, but 3 or 4 years ago when Stamford Music Festival was there, none of this was brought to light. I feel like it's only because it's us, the new application, is why this is being brought to light now.
Any further questions? Anyone else?
No,
Yeah, no. Sorry, you've got to be on the list apparently. Who is on the list? Thank you.
Oh, sorry, the woman in pink is on the list.
Okay.
You will have noticed that some of my questions earlier were with regard to security, and you've answered one of them by saying that they're SIA security staff, not in fact premium security staff. And the ratio of staff that you've suggested that you're going to have is somewhat lacking. I believe the industry standard for those sort of numbers is 1 in 50.
What was recommended to us by the security company is 1 in 70, plus we have stewards on site as well, which are also SIA accredited. This premium thing, I've never heard of that.
So, I mean, well, it's well known in security circles. Okay. You mentioned concerts at somewhere called Springfield.
Yep, Springfield Farm.
Okay. How close were they to a residence area?
Within 200 metres was the closest one.
So not
and
as close as this proposal?
Well, actually, there's residents on site at Springfield Farm as well. So you're talking distance, 15 metres.
Where is Springfield? Is that Chelmsford?
St Albans.
St Albans, okay. You also said that this is a community event for those basically aged 20 to 50.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, you've already heard that there's a care home along Billet Lane, and a vast proportion of the residents are well over the age of 50. So it doesn't embrace the whole community. Definitely not.
And that's purely because of the type of entertainment we have on, the type of music. I mean, you wouldn't naturally expect someone of the age of 70 to come to a house music event.
I wouldn't naturally expect such an event to be in such a residential area. I think it's very short-sighted and naive. You've said that, going back to traffic, you've said that you expect the vast majority of people to not travel by car. I think that's naive in the extreme. And you didn't answer my question about if there was a major incident. And you've highlighted to the chair there about the type of fencing that's around. That sort of numbers, Hillsborough sprung to mind actually when you said that.
What, steel shield fencing is the industry standard for music festivals. And to answer your question around why that area, I mean, why is this all of a sudden a problem now when there's been events there, music festivals there on both fields in previous years?
Okay. I will highlight to you that historically, as I said when I first spoke, there have been multiple complaints about music from that area being played. It's just that now this has come to a pinnacle and enough is enough.
And this is from the Billet pub, correct?
It's from that area. I believe it's the Billet pub.
Yeah, and that's not the premises that we're applying for.
No, but you are still going to be playing music, and you've already said in your note it's going to be noise pollution on the day.
Yeah, and yes, Chair.
Turn microphones off, please. Yeah. Just sum up, and because we have to move this along, there's somebody else wishing to speak, I understand. Thank you. Was there someone else who wished to speak? Who's on the list? Yes, please. Could you sit at the table and use the microphone, please?
He said we've never had a problem before. He said it's local people, for local people. Okay, people are coming from Stamford. They know we're a residential area. They come by car. We've had the same situation before. We've been blocked in our drives. We couldn't go out. If we did go out, we come back. We had nowhere to park. So what's going to happen? We've got over this again.
Okay. Is there anything else you wish to add? It's mainly the parking and traffic.
Well, it's parking,
control.
plus all the noise, of course. You know, my bedroom window is directly in it, and I can't have my windows open overnight, especially all the shifts, you know, the shouting and everything. But we've had the music festivals before, and we've prayed and prayed for rain, so it's got rained off. So why should this be any different?
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Sorry, no.
Thank you. Okay, so if I'd now like to ask the licensing officer to summarise their case.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to summarise everyone's points. We've heard extensive submissions from all parties this evening. So it's now for the panel to retire, review everything they've heard and read, and come to a decision. Thank you.
Thank you. To ask Essex Police to summarise their case, please.
Thank you, sir. So we have outlined the conditions we have proposed and do ask the committee to consider those if it so chooses to grant the licence. We will also wish to, if it were to be granted, and I do not predispose your decision, we will hopefully look to set up some form of meetings with Red Room after the event so that we can debrief and ensure any learning opportunities that come out of any reports that come into the police are dealt with after the fact, but that is still reliant on what decision you make in your deliberation. I do not wish to predispose your decision.
Thank you. I would now like to ask the ward member to summarise their case, please.
Without trying to shortcut anything, I think I've probably made my points pretty clear. For me, it's a nice idea. It's just couldn't be in the worst location if it tried, for all the reasons I've articulated.
Thank you, Councillor. I'd now like to ask the applicant to make a closing summary statement.
Sure. Just on behalf of our company, I want to say we are a safe operator. We've operated for almost 5 years now. We've not one single problem at any of our events. The site we're applying for obviously has a precedence for music festivals and entertainment, and we've, throughout all of our plans and communications with the council, have agreed to everything that they've set on the conditions of the licence, and we're ever more committed to working with them on whatever we need to do. So we've got specialist people in place from our production company to mitigate noise levels, a professional security team to help on the day in providing proper search, providing safe and secure running of the event, and crowd management in and off premises.
Thank you. Everyone said everything they wish to say. Right. The subcommittee will now retire to consider its decision and will be accompanied by the clerk and legal advisor of the subcommittee. Thank you. Right, thank you everyone for being patient and waiting. I'll just call this meeting to order now. The subcommittee has considered all the arguments proposed. I'll now pass you over to our legal officer, to Simon Scrowther, to give our verdict.
Thank you, Chair. The application is refused. Whilst subcommittee listened very carefully to the submissions of the applicant and was sympathetic to the application, subcommittee remained concerned that the event egress, 2,500 people, albeit staggered, will have to egress through a predominantly residential area. The number suggested will, in the opinion of subcommittee, cause public nuisance, and as such the licensing aims are not promoted. For that reason, the application is reluctantly refused.
And that concludes this evening's proceedings. Thank you much, and thank everyone for their attendance. And I'm closing the meeting now at 8:40. Thank you.